To say that Hiro Takeda loves food is an understatement. The local chef interned at the world-class restaurant Noma in Copenhagen to bring back ideas for his humble Fraser Valley gourmet eatery. But what Hiro cares about more than serving the perfect dish to a smiling guest is nurturing community. When I met him at the end of 2015, this was evident. He wasn't just hiring staff, he was transforming people. He wasn't only creating flavors, he was altering palates. Hiro's passion for foraging food is equaled by his quest for ideas. He is continuously experimenting and exploring his craft, but also his industry and his world. It's been difficult to follow Hiro's trajectory, mostly because it's a zigzag between the Fraser Valley and Northern Europe, from maple syrup to poultry farming to non-conforming spirits. He joins me today from Tallinn, Estonia, to update on his latest adventures and to create a cross-Atlantic photo project that honors our shared interests of experimenting and fermenting. I'm Greg Lachek, and this is Revisited, a visual podcast about reconnection. Each episode, I interview people I'd written about as a reporter almost 10 years ago. We talk about what they've been up to in the last decade, how it relates to when we met, and what direction they're pointed toward moving forward. For a bit of fun along the way, we create a photography project together, capturing a snapshot of us now that will live into the future. Today, Hiro Takeda. Hiro, it's great to see you again.
Nice to see you as well, Greg.
So Hiro, when I met you, you had your restaurant in Hope. Can you talk about that moment in time? Tell us about the restaurant.
That was the time, going to Noma was an extremely important time, not just because of the experience that I had there, but I think primarily the biggest thing is it sort of opened up the entire world for me. Getting to meet so many different people from different parts of the world who all cooked professionally, living in a different country for the first time ever in my life, and being able to see that actually the place where I was from was not so big. And at the time, I was at Noma because my primary focus was to bring techniques and ideas and a mentality back to 293. We were trying our best to pursue more creative outlets within our food. And for a small town like Hope that was quite new and different, we felt a really strong sense of community there and a strong sense of support from that community. And so that was the time when we were doing something called Monday Night Tastings, which is what you wrote about, where we would actually come up with a new menu every Monday, which was a collective effort by all of our staff. It wasn't just my ideas. A lot of the ideas actually weren't mine. And so it was just this really cool period of time where we were, I think we were buzzing on a very high frequency, especially when it came to creativity.
I was following you on social media and saw that you were suddenly back in Denmark and distilling alcohol. How did that come to be, and take us on that wild timeline that was between then and now?
If I start to really think about it, so 2015, was Noma, and then after that, a year later, I was offered a job to go back to Copenhagen, and that job was to work at a distillery called Empirical Spirits. So this was a distillery that was started by two Noma alumni, including Lars Williams, who was the head of research and development at Noma. We were trying to create something called free-form spirits. So in the spirit world, there's a lot of different categories, like gin has to be this certain thing or whiskey has to be this certain thing. So we were trying to move past that. So we were doing a combination of a beer and sake fermentation to begin with. We're incorporating a lot of different flavors that weren't maybe normal, like oysters and chicken skin. And we were doing vacuum distillation, which means that you can distill at a bit of lower temperature. And the whole thing with that is actually I have no background at all in distilling. But we were looking at it from a chef's perspective in terms of flavor development, and that alcohol was just another medium for developing flavor. And so that was a very worthwhile experience for me. I was there for 2 years, helping to start the production of this company, and then moving into the research and development side as well. And the special thing about that time was, given what we were trying to do and gaining the attention from locals and from abroad, it opened up a whole new world of different caliber chefs and different minds that I was able to tap into. And so it was a very fortunate time in my life as well. And then from there, I left in the end of 2018, and I came back to Canada a few months later from Copenhagen. And that's from 2019 until fall of 2020, I would say, was sort of my wilderness time. My time where I was doing a little bit of consulting and working at a camp that I used to work at before, and trying to explore what I was going to do. I remember feeling distinctly lost at that time and not knowing what the next steps were, but I knew that I didn't want to stay in Canada. And so I explored many different things, including working with my friend Justin at a company called Wild Forest Foods, where we were making maple syrup, and I was working on a few different products like kombucha and some dried teas and so on. And so that was a really nice thing to explore at the time. So I was really trying to tap into the landscape that was around us and being in the forest a lot, and that was very soothing. But I had this restlessness. And so at the time I had a partner who was Estonian. We packed up our bags after working for 4 months at a duck farm, at a poultry farm in Chilliwack. And we packed up our bags in June of 2020, right around when COVID was really becoming a thing. And we drove across the country, 13,500 kilometers in a van, and to spend time seeing the country that I was born in before flying to Estonia. My partner's from Estonia, and that's kind of the connection there.
And then remind me what took you to Tallinn and sort of then that storyline about this phase of your life.
So Estonia was always in the cards. My partner at the time, who I met in Copenhagen, she's from Estonia. And so it was always going to be a small amount of time in Canada, about a year. And we would come back to Estonia. And then from there, we would decide what we were going to do. And so we arrived in Tallinn with no prospects on what we were going to do. My partner had worked at this restaurant before called Leib, which is the word for black bread in Estonian. And the owners of that caught wind that we were in town. And it's a small city, the industry is even smaller, and so we pretty much were given job offers maybe 2-3 weeks after we arrived. And so the two of them started this restaurant that focused on sourcing local ingredients and bringing about Estonian food with a little bit of a twist. And it was a highly popular restaurant. It was located in the old town, had a huge garden, very, very beautiful location. And they did that for about 10 years or so. And in 2020, they started to realize that actually the concept was getting a little bit stale. Their head chef at the time was planning on leaving. There was a big sort of like transition period happening. At the same time, COVID was kind of starting to take wind. And so Christian and Jano decided that, this was the time to maybe rejuvenate the space. And that's sort of where we came in. We came in sort of at this serendipitous time, sort of, where they were looking for a chef or a couple chefs that were willing to kind of explore a new concept in the space. And so we were really lucky with the timing. We had one last meal at Leib before it closed. And then the plan was for the rest of 2020 that we would do like group bookings and cook that way. And then in January, we would renovate the restaurants. And my partner and I would spend time creating a menu. They have a sister restaurant that we can use their kitchen and so on. So in 2021, the first 6 months was spent menu development, like developing a menu, developing a concept, working together with the restaurant manager, Sirli, and one of our head waiters, Eliza. And the four of us would kind of work together along with the owners to kind of flesh out this concept. And in June of 2021, we opened a restaurant called Le, in the same space as Lab. Le is actually one of the oldest Estonian words in the vocabulary. It's a word for an ancient Estonian fireplace. It's a communal fireplace where people would come together to gather and share stories and build relationships and nurture relationships and cook together. And so we wanted to sort of take that same approach to our food. We created a menu that was shareable. We have something called the Le Experience, where we actually get 6 different dishes on our menu and everything is shared. So you get a chance to experience different flavors. And our overall concept was still using Estonian ingredients as the base of every single dish, sourcing locally, but bringing in a lot more international influence through our experience in Copenhagen and my experience exploring Southeast Asia and growing up as a Japanese Canadian in the Vancouver area. And so I felt very fortunate to begin with, because these are 2 owners who took us on, employed us, and gave us sort of free reign on the menu. It was an immense amount of trust that they put into us. And at that time, my partner and I, we parted ways. We separated, and she moved back to Copenhagen. And so then I had the choice of whether I was going to stay on my own to continue to do Le, or to move on myself. And at that time, I had become quite fond of Estonia and decided, okay, now I think I'll stay and see if I can polish this concept to be a little bit more my own. And so as it stands right now, the food at Le is an exploration of what it means to be a Japanese Canadian living in Estonia, and utilizing ingredients here along with techniques that I learned in the past, ideas that I have now, and I cannot begin to describe how fortunate I feel to be part of this project, to be able to explore myself internally in such an intimate way through food in a restaurant that I had no idea existed 4 years ago. But at the same time, it's also challenged me to really think about what are the things that are really important to me? What are my values? What are my beliefs? And especially when it comes to food, there was a transition that happened, especially at 293, but was also stabilized here, was this idea that food is just a medium for building relationships and nurturing relationships. And that's something that's cool to explore, because the truth of the matter is I wouldn't be in Tallinn, Estonia right now if it wasn't for food. And I wouldn't have had all these experiences I've had if it wasn't for food. I wouldn't have the friend group that I have now if it wasn't for food. And I wouldn't have this sense of purpose of trying to share more of myself with people if it wasn't for food. I think in that way, cooking is a beautiful thing, because the people who eat my food, even if they don't meet me, get at least a small sense of who I am. And so I think that sort of stabilizes this sort of foundation to go, okay, even if I'm uncomfortable going to different parts of the world, or exploring a new technique, or different challenges that come up, there's this foundational thought, or this idea that actually there's a sense of purpose that I have in exploring the world. It's a duty that I have to myself to explore the world, and at the same time to share myself with the people that I have around me. And so I think that kind of helps to maybe be a little bit less nervous about some of the spontaneous decisions that I tend to make.
That is an incredible story from, back when we met in Hope, your time moving around and where you've ended up now. What's next for you? What do you see in your near or far term future?
When I think about the future, I mean, it's cool talking to you about this, because at the time that we met, I look back on who I was at that time in 2015, and I think of the goals that I had in mind. I wanted to make 293 a really good restaurant, and maybe one day I could compete in a market like Vancouver and open up a restaurant there. And that was my goal. My goal was to stay. And now when I think about here and I think about how the mentality has changed, I think a lot of that also, for now, when I think about the future, I think about how there's that spontaneity, I guess. There's that spontaneous sort of feeling that maybe I'm a little bit more comfortable with. I'm not getting any younger. And so because of that, I'm starting to think about, well, I don't necessarily want to be always cooking on the line, and I want to be using my mind for other things, using my mind more rather than my body more. I think the idea of diversifying myself has also been in my mind. There's a lot of other things other than cooking that I really enjoy doing. And so how do you bring those things together? Currently, at the moment, I'm exploring things like kintsugi, which is a Japanese method of fixing plates. Still linked to cooking in the restaurant, but also a different medium. But looking a bit broader into future, I have my goals for Leh. I have my ideas of what kind of restaurant I want us to be, and how to push to a higher standard than what we have now. How we want to explore food, and for me, like my own personal sort of drive to want to be part of this city improving our food and gaining more international recognition in that sense. So there's those goals, but also I'm thinking a little bit more in terms of, how do I want to diversify my time? I love managing and mentoring people. I love the idea of different businesses. I'm keen to explore different partnerships in whatever medium. I have a Google Drive of business ideas, like opening an art gallery or starting some sort of mentorship company that travels around the world to deal specifically with soft skills training and leadership training in our restaurant industry, and helping to there's a lot of conversations that have been had over the past few years now about sustainability in restaurants. So it'd be nice to kind of explore that, especially from like a human aspect. We talk a lot about like carbon footprint or waste management, but I think more and more to see a bit more nuts and bolts training on how to structure schedules to make sure people are getting work-life balance, or how to train chefs to have the soft skills to be able to manage people. Those are things that are also very interesting for me as well, and things that I have lots to learn in that, and that actively every single day I'm challenged in that. So it'd be nice to explore that as well. As much as I love creating dishes and recipes and seeing people smile because of the food that they get in front of them, I also want to sort of challenge the systems that are behind the the opportunities that I have to do even those things. So I think that's what's in the future. I know it's very vague. I actually don't have any like concrete ideas at the moment. But these are things that are kind of on my mind.
And speaking of the future, you and I are going to create a photo project together that has me really excited. So I'm looking forward to it, Hiro. We'll catch up after I get the film and do my part over here.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what it turns out to be.
Hiro, good to see you again. Thanks for coming back for our photo conversation.
Nice to see you as well, Greg.
I'll start by just introducing the process we used. We had a conversation about what should we do for the photo project and what should the theme be. Maybe you should talk about the theme.
The idea was because fermentation is such a huge part of what we do here at the restaurant that I work at Leh. We thought it would be like a really interesting experiment to try and take film, put it into like a fermented medium, and then see what comes out of it. And so we took actually one of our most popular ferments, which is a black bread shoyu. It's like a soy sauce inspired product that's made primarily with organic barley and Estonian black bread. Actually, all the leftover like ends of the bread that we serve at the restaurant is what we use as the medium. And so we took this product and we decided to just put the film in it and then develop it and see what happens. That's kind of the idea that we sort of collectively came up with, right?
And what about the theme for the photos themselves? You got a film camera from a friend and went around taking some photos.
Yeah, so regarding that, I mean, I wanted to showcase, I guess, my life out here. Not only the day-to-day of maybe like things at the restaurant and some of the products that we have, or some of the ways that we like constructed the space, but also just even in general, just everyday places that I walk past. I'm very fortunate to live in a very beautiful part of the city in the Old Town, just right on the outskirts of Old Town. So it's a UNESCO heritage site.
Was there, I seem to recall a theme of community around food.
I mean, food is just such a important medium for people to come together to just connect. A lot of times, as a chef, as much as I would love that conversations are centered around food or ideas about food or different combinations of ingredients, that actually at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create a space for people to like hang out and enjoy each other's company, and to see the immediate feedback of that from, smiles from our guests and so on. This sort of like magic of the industry that I am lucky to be able to work, and I wanted to try and capture that. And so we try to kind of like have some photos of not only people working together but laughing together, maybe like sharing a drink together and that sort of thing. So I tried to capture those moments as well, just to kind of bring a bit more of like a holistic theme, and maybe even like a behind the scenes sort of I guess take on how we work. And
this is a good time then for me to apologize for ruining most of that for you. I'll talk about the process a little bit more, and that, so what you did was you packaged it in the soy sauce like liquid, shipped it over to me, and in that process the film was fermenting in this ferment, and that took, I don't know how long, a week or more. And then by the time it got to me, I pulled out the leader, which is the beginning of the film that you load in, and it was slimy or creamy.
Oh, really?
And I was like, oh no, this is not, I already thought this is not maybe gonna work. There was a part of me that said, okay, we're gonna have to redo this. I better get going on that. And then I thought, well, you got to see the experiment through, right? This is again like the fermentation parallel. You do it for a reason. You still got to taste it. I developed it, but I'm pouring the developer out, and it's like mud because it's just emulsion. So out of 48 shots, we ended up getting 3 that are recognizable and 5 in total. And I say 5 because the other 2 actually look pretty cool in their own way. You just can't tell whether they're even photos or not. Yeah, it worked in the end. I almost, again, when I poured it out, I still went through with all the stages of development, took them out. And I also thought, as long as I have blobs left of photos, they don't need to be permanent. They just need to be dry enough to scan, and then I've got some images. Maybe let's look at these and talk about them a little bit. What do we see here? There's 2 frames. There's on the right, I see patterns in tiles, it looks like.
I'm really happy that this one turned out. This is actually so the word le, which is the restaurant that I work at, it's an ancient Estonian word for fireplace. It's like a communal fireplace where people would come together to cook together and eat and hang out. And so in our restaurant, as soon as you walk in, on the left is a fireplace. And this is actually the paneling on the fireplace. And it's like a very beautiful tile. It's a proper wood fireplace. And so that's the that's you can see it like it's the first image on the homepage of our website. It's a very beautiful kind of centerpiece. It's a place where actually a lot of people either take pictures before they eat, or it's also my favorite spot because there's 2 chairs in front of it with a small table with like lambskin, and it's one of my favorite spots to just sit there and have a whiskey or a glass of wine with a friend or so.
Looking at this image and the rest of them, I'm very pleased in one way because they're just so different. But what I don't necessarily like about them is they're a little bit darker. Like, to go with the theme of community, I want something a little bit more, not necessarily uplifting, but just this is like almost darkness creeping in. I love that we can see the different color sensitive layers of the emulsion. That's really cool.
To be honest though, there's actually something really interesting about this. Like when I was looking at the images, I also was like, oh, it's like, it is like quite dark imagery. It almost looks like because of the pattern on the outside that it was burnt to a certain extent. And like you said, there's this darkness that's creeping in. This is actually like the thought that I had regarding this is actually a cool analogy, because Estonia is very, very well known for having long and dark winters. So you're pretty much cutting out light from about an hour to 2 hours on each side. It gets dark very quickly, 3 o'clock, 3:30. And it doesn't get light out. So, you know, a lot of times for a lot of the year, people, especially if they work in offices with no windows, you don't get sunlight at all. Trying to like combat that darkness for most of the year with sort of like this idea of community building and serving food and making our guests happy. And so it's like almost like you're trying to combat this like encroaching darkness. It's every single year this happens where we try our best to like lift each other's spirits and make sure that we're not getting depressed and trying to do activities and so on. So maybe in a way, like loosely, it's a bit of a cool analogy.
I love that. No, that's you're actually holding that darkness at bay. But
it's also, you know, it's a present part of everyday life here. So it also signifies that like being optimistic is cool, but this is a reality, and it's something that, you know, we face every single year anyway. So,
well, let's have a look at number 2 here. Talk about this one. This is a little easier to tell what's going on here.
So this would be the one with the jars in the right corner, yeah? Mm-hmm. So this photo actually, this picture was taken, our restaurant has 3 different levels. It's very cool because you walk in through a garden and then you enter sort of the main dining room. And then there's like a staircase kind of to the right of the fireplace where you can go down, and then there's a private dining room. And then one more level below is another dining room, both smaller. But that second staircase on the way to the second dining room, there's a little ledge there, and that's what's pictured there is this sort of like wooden ledge. There's a window behind it, and that's actually where we keep some of our ferments and preserves.
We've got a really clear one in frame 3 here.
So this is Telluskivi. Telluskivi is an area that became quite hip, and this photo in particular, I just took it because it said Telluskivi. It's a very artsy part of town, and also is quite close to probably the biggest and most popular food market. To me, it just seems like distinctly like European. I guess the brick gives that sort of like it's been there for a while and it's kind of weathered, and so that's why I wanted to kind of capture this one.
It's great, and it's like aside from the experimental process, it's a great picture.
And this other one, I'm so curious as to what it was, because it looks like there's blue skies, and I mean I think that the patterns on the border are like so cool because they're all so different. Some of the spots, especially like most notably in the first and second picture, like the blue panel one and also the ferment one on the left, like these sort of like, in a way, they almost look like a variety of different microorganisms, which again sort of relates to this like fermentation theme. I'm so glad that like some of the pictures have come down.
Me too. Yeah. Hiro, thanks again for being a part of this project, and I look forward to talking to you again sometime. Take care. That's it for this episode of Revisited. Thank you for joining, and please be sure to check out more.
Bye.